Hi everyone, I am back talking about one final thing that we need to focus on with doing the passé composé, specifically with our verbs that go with être. So as we know already, our passé composé has two verbs. The first one can either be avoir or it can be être, and the second one is our past participle. We learned already that our past participle needs to make agreement with the subject when you're doing an être verb. Okay, so this is when agreement would happen. It's not going to happen with avoir. Agreement would be adding potentially an extra E, an S, or maybe an ES. So that's our basic passé composé. And we know that this list right here these are all of the verbs that would go with être. So hopefully you've memorized those. Before I get into understanding this last thing, it's required that we understand what it is to have an object of a sentence. So first, let's start off with this. Our basic sentence in French has to have a subject and a verb. It could be as simple as je mange, for example, I'm eating. Oftentimes, though, we have a slightly more complicated sentence and we have an object after that, and you would describe what it is that you're eating or with whom, etc. So let me give a couple of examples here. We have je mange un sandwich. I'm eating a sandwich. Je parle à un professeur. I'm speaking to a professor. Je fume des cigarettes. I'm smoking cigarettes. Je fume avec ma sœur. I'm smoking with my sister. Je nage dans l'océan. I'm swimming in the ocean. J'achète le maillot de bain bleu. I'm buying the blue swimsuit. So these are all very basic. You've got subject and verb, and your object, though, has two different types of object here. What we call these are direct and indirect objects. Before we understand a direct versus an indirect object, we need to understand what a preposition is. A preposition is a word that describes the relationship. Describes the relationship between two nouns. Okay. In this case, in all of the sentences that I gave here, the first noun is the subject and the second noun is somewhere in the object. Words that would be examples of prepositions would be like in, at, to, of or from, next to the right of, to the left of, underneath, above, through, after, before, during. So oftentimes this is physical relationship. In French, we have examples of à, de, à côté de, pour, dans, sur, sous, avec, and many more. Okay? So, if we have a preposition before our object, it is an indirect object. So that's subject plus verb plus preposition plus noun. Whereas a direct object is subject, verb, no preposition, just adding the noun. Of course, usually before a noun we have an article, but the idea is here that you have a preposition or you don't. Okay, so the preposition here is indirect. So if we look back at our examples here, we have je mange un sandwich. Do we have a preposition here? No, we don't. So therefore, this is a direct object. Je parle à un professeur. Do we have a preposition here? Yes, we do. It's à. Therefore, this is an indirect object. À un professeur is indirect. Je fume des cigarettes. We do not have a preposition here. So this is a direct object. We just have article and noun. Je fume avec ma sœur. We do have a preposition here, avec. Therefore, it's an indirect object. Je nage dans l'océan. Dans is my preposition. Therefore, this is an indirect object. J'achète le maillot de bain bleu. This does not have a preposition. Therefore, it is a direct object. So we see that before the article is where we're looking here. If I don't have a preposition, it's a direct object. This is important because when we look at our sentences with être, sometimes if we have a direct versus an indirect object, it can change the meaning and it can also therefore change how we conjugate it. So I gave you here some present tense verbs with sortir. Okay, sortir can be defined or or the definition for it is either to go out socially or to get out of some sort of a confining situation. That could be a physical situation like a car, or it could be a situation or a relationship or something like that. So let's look at this and decide if we have indirect or direct objects. Je sors au bar. Subject, verb, and then au and bar. Is this indirect or direct? Let's see, I used purple for indirect. So let's look at this. I do have a preposition here. So this is indirect. Je sors de la voiture. I'm getting out of the car. I have a preposition here. Therefore, I have an indirect object. But this one, je sors le lapin de sa cage. This actually has two objects here. The first one is le lapin, and the second one is de sa cage. De sa cage is an indirect object, but le lapin is a direct object because it doesn't have a preposition here. So we have to think about what is the verb acting on here. In the case of je sors au bar, who is doing the going out? Is it the bar, which is one noun, or is it je, which is the other noun? I am the one going out to the bar, so the action is being done onto me. Je sors de la voiture. I am getting out of the car. What is doing the getting out? Is it the car that's getting out of another situation? No, it's me. I am getting out. So the action is being done onto my subject. Je sors le lapin de sa cage. I'm getting out the rabbit from its cage. Sortir is not being done onto me. I'm not doing the getting out of something. It's being done onto the rabbit, which is the direct object here. I'm taking the rabbit out of its cage. It's the rabbit that's moving. So when I do this in passé composé, I know sortir is in my être list. So I would say, allez parti, sorti, venu. There it is. It's in my list. It's in my song. So I'm going to conjugate these from present now in passé composé. For je, with être, sortir, je suis sorti au bar. I want to watch out for agreement here because it's with être. I'm a female, so I'm going to get an extra E. If you're a male, then you don't get an E. But je suis sorti au bar. The next one, je sors de la voiture. Similar. Je suis sorti with an extra E because I'm feminine and I've used être. De la voiture. If we look at this last one, je sors le lapin de sa cage. Because this verb is actually not being done onto me, but is being done onto the rabbit, I want to make it agree with that, and I'm actually not even going to use être at all. So this is where it gets really tricky. I'm going to go back to avoir. J'ai sorti le lapin de sa cage. Okay? Once again, because this verb is being done onto the direct object, it's not being done onto the subject, the way that these were, it is now going to go with avoir, and I'm not going to get agreement because of that. Okay? So there's a certain number of verbs in our list that switch, okay, between going with être, like they do in the song, versus going with avoir because they have a direct object. So let's go through this list right here and figure out which ones can go with which. If it's by itself, namely it's a sentence and it's just ending there, like je suis allé, I went, or je suis parti, I left, or je suis sorti, I went out, or je suis venu, I came, or je suis descendu, I went down. All of these can be by itself with être. Okay, and you don't have to think. So if it's the end of the sentence, for sure it's going to go with être. But then, if you have a sentence where it's subject, verb, and you have something after it, and you have an object, that's where you have to decide, is it going to go with avoir, or is it going to go with être? If the action is being done onto myself, it will go with être. If it's being done onto something else, like we'll use the bunny for an example. If it's being done onto the bunny, then it's going to go with avoir. So I'm going to draw a line here, and we're going to decide if it's possible for for a certain verb to go with être or avoir, both, is another option. So by itself, we know for sure all of them, yes. They all work. That's why they're in a song together. Let's go with aller. Can I go to France? Yes, I can. Can I go the rabbit? No, I can't. Can I leave and go to France? Yes, I can. Can I leave or depart the bunny? Can I leave the bunny, as in, can I make the bunny do the action of leaving? No, I can't. Sortir. Can I myself go out to the bars? Yes, I can. Can I take out the rabbit from its cage? Yes, I can. So that's an example of the first one that can go with avoir. To come, venir. Can I come to the party? Yes, I can. Can I come the rabbit? No. Oops. Well, if it's no, then I shouldn't put a check there. Descendre. Can I go down into the basement? Yes. Can I take the rabbit down from its cage? Can I descend it from its cage? Yes. Can I return myself? Let's see. Can I be returning to my house? Yes. Can I return the rabbit to its house? Yes. Can I arrive late? Yes. Can I arrive a rabbit? No. Can I remain in my bed for 3 extra hours? Yes. Can I remain the rabbit? Can I do the action of remaining onto that? No, I cannot. Monter, to mount, get on, or ride. Can I get on a horse? Yes. Can I do the action of getting on for the rabbit? No, because I'm not inside of the rabbit, right? So the rabbit can get onto something else, but I can't do it to the rabbit. I can't make that action occur in the rabbit. But I could take the rabbit up into its cage, which would be to mount it, or sadly, of course, if my rabbit was dead, I could mount it onto the wall. So I can do that as well. Tomber, to fall. Can I fall on the ice? Yes. Can I fall a rabbit? No. Can I enter into the room? Yes. Can I enter a rabbit into its cage or into a competition? Yes. Can I be born? Yes. Can I born a rabbit? No. It's different. To be born versus to birth is a different verb. Mourir, to die. Can I die? Yes. Can I die a rabbit? No. There's a difference between to die and to kill. Devenir, to become. Can I become insta-famous? Yes. Can I do the action of becoming onto the rabbit? Can I force the rabbit into that different change of state? No, I can't. Revenir, can I come back to the United States? Yes. Can I come back a rabbit? No. Can I re-enter into my car after I realize that I forgot something? Yes. Can I re-enter a rabbit into its cage or into a competition? Yes. Passé, to pass through or by, or can sometimes mean to spend time. Can I pass by the bank? Yes. Can I pass the rabbit or pass the salt? Yes, I can. So these 7, sortir, retourner, descendre, monter, entrer, rentrer, and passer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These 7 have the possibility of changing and using avoir instead of être. And it all depends. It's going to have avoir if it's doing a direct object. So I'm going to look at that very, very closely. So let me go down here. Oops, come on. And do some examples with you. So here we go. Our first step, as always, has been to decide if I'm using avoir or être. Just on the basic way of doing this, I'm going to use être if it's in my song or it's on my list and I've memorized that. Then I'm going to add the past participle, making sure it's conjugated correctly, namely, is it regular or irregular on the ending. Then I'm going to do agreement. Remember that agreement only happens with verbs that have gone with être. Once I've done that, I'm going to watch closely. If it had been with être, I'm going to look for objects. If I'm looking at something that went with avoir, I don't even have to get to number 4. Okay, in fact, if it's with avoir, I just need to look at number 1 and 2, avoir or être on past participle, because we know that agreement doesn't happen and we don't have to watch for the rest. So if it's with avoir, you stop here. However, if it's with être, you need to watch out for agreement and you need to watch out for objects. Looking closely at this, if there's no object, it's just the subject verb, right? Boom, boom. And this verb is from your list. Well, I should give it a second verb rather, shouldn't I? Because passé composé goes with to. Okay, but it's the end of my sentence here, right after my verb. That's going to go with être, if it's in my song. If I have a subject and I've got my 2 verbs for passé composé and my object then has a preposition here, plus a noun, I'm going to keep it with être. However, if I have subject and 2 verbs for my passé composé and I don't have a preposition, I just have the noun following it, then I need to use avoir. Okay? In terms of agreement, let me do this. This is going to get agreement. This is going to get agreement. But this one, no agreement. Okay? All right. So let's look at these. All right. Je with descendre au sous-sol. I want to decide, is it going with avoir or is it going with être? It's in my song, so I'm going to first assume, okay, well, this goes with être, right? And so I would say, je suis. Descendre for number 2, for the second part is past participle, so I need to use descendu, okay? And I'm going to look then for agreement. If I'm a feminine person, I'm going to have an extra E, so that's number 3. Avoir, être, past participle, number 3 is agreement. Because I've done it with être, I need agreement. Then I'm going to look over for, remember, watching for objects. Okay? So let's look at my object here. I have au sous-sol, which is to say in the basement. Here, I have a preposition. So this is an indirect object. My indirect objects, right here, they keep être and they keep agreement. So I'm done with this. It's got my indirect object, I'm good. Next one, same verb, descendre. Tu, I would think, oh, okay, well, it's in my song, it's with être, so tu es descendu. I would have to think about the gender of this person here. Let's say that it's a feminine person, okay? And then I would look, so I've made agreement. Number 4 then, once again, is looking at my object. I have les livres. Do I have a preposition before my article right here? No, I don't. So this is a direct object, not an indirect object, but direct. That means that I have to change it back to avoir. So I'm not going to use est descendu. I'm going to use a descendu and no agreement because I've used avoir, not être. Tu as descendu les livres, namely, you took the books down. You descended the books. You got one off of the shelf, for example. Versus here, number 1, je suis descendu au sous-sol. I went down to the basement. It's not the basement that's going down, it's me. Okay? Here, I'm descending the books. You can see that. Être is when the action is being done onto the subject. Avoir is when the action is being done onto the direct object. Retourner sa lettre, number 3. Is it avoir or être? Well, retourner is in my list of être verbs, so I'm going to use it with être. Il est retourné. Oops. Retourner with an accent. It's masculine. I don't need to do anything to change agreement here, but it is there. Then I need to look at my object over here. Sa lettre, his letter or her letter, returned return somebody's letter here. Do I have a preposition? Whoops, do I have a preposition before my object? No, ça means his or her. No preposition, so this is a direct object, which is going to need to flip back and go with avoir. So I don't want to use il est retourné. He didn't do the returning. He returned the letter. Il a retourné la lettre, or sa lettre. Next one, elle with retourner en France. Retourner, I know that this goes with être, so elle est retournée. It's in my song, wonderful. Agreement here, elle gets an extra E. Looking at my object here, en France, is this direct or indirect? En means in, that's a preposition. So this is an indirect object, which means I'm going to stay with être. Okay, so I don't have to change this. Elle est retournée en France. She returned to France. So she's doing the returning. Passé, par la banque. Passé is in my être song, so I'm just going to assume that it goes with that. Nous sommes passés. Getting agreement, depending on the gender of this person, we don't know, so I'll put an E in the parentheses, but for sure it's an S. All right, looking at my object, par la banque, do I have a preposition? Yes, I do. Par means by. So this is an indirect object, which means that it's going to stay with être. So I've already done it, right? Nous sommes passés par la banque. We passed by. We did the passing. We're not passing the bank over to somebody else. Numéro 6, passé again. We're going to say, oh yeah, well this is with être because it's in my song. Vous êtes passé. We don't know the gender of this person. We don't know the number of this person either. So both in parentheses, but we would have to watch for agreement. Then continuing with the object, du sel is some salt. Watch out here. The du here is an article. It's not a preposition. I don't have a preposition here, which means that I have a direct object. I'm not passing at the salt. I'm just passing the salt. If I have a direct object, that means I need to switch back to avoir. So I'm not going to use vous êtes passé. I'm going to use vous avez passé, and no agreement because I've used avoir. Vous avez passé du sel. You passed some salt. Last two, monter, to go up or get into or to mount. This is être. It's in my song. So, ils sont montés. I need to get agreement here because I used être. Looking at my object, dans le train, do I have a preposition? Dans is a preposition. It means in. So that's an indirect object, which means I get to stay with être. I don't need to change anything. Ils sont montés dans le train. They got in the train. They were the ones getting in. As opposed to vous avez passé du sel. You were passing the salt. Not you are passing yourself. Elle with monter un avion. Monter, once again, to get in, to mount, etc. I'm going to say, oh, well, this is with être because it's in my song or it's in my list. Get an extra E and S for agreement. Then I look at my object, un avion. Do I have a preposition before my object? No, I'm missing one. This is therefore a direct object, which means I have to switch back to avoir. Because, so, on montait. No agreement here because I've used avoir. What does this mean here? These women are not getting into the plane. They are mounting a plane, as in to say they are making or putting up a plane, as in they're putting one together. Okay, monter can mean to put together as well. So you'll see that when the verb is being done onto the subject, you're using être. If your verb is being done onto an object, okay, that's when you're going to use avoir, okay? That's because that object has no preposition here, whereas here, there's a preposition, okay? I hope that helps you guys understand. This is a very small issue, but it is an important one that hopefully with more practice, you will be able to master.